Studies of the University of Dar es Salaam, but specifically here at the Council Chamber, where we are going to have a workshop which is related to the project titled New Direction in Development Studies and Sustainability. This is a joint project with a number of institutions. So here at the University of Dar es Salaam, the Institute of Development Studies is one of the member or participating organizations for the project. We also have the University of Dodoma, University of Zambia, Helsinki, and Jyväskylä from Finland. So 2 Finnish universities and 3 Southern African institutions from Tanzania and Zambia. You are very much welcome to today's workshop. And like I said earlier, we have participants both online and physically here at the Council Chamber. So now, going straight to the program, I would like to invite the Director of the Institute of Development Studies, Director of IDS, Dr. Coleman Isoka, to offer the welcome remark for the meeting and invite our guest of honor, Professor Nelson Boniface, who is the Deputy Vice Chancellor Research, representing the Vice Chancellor of the University of Dar es Salaam. Dr. Isoka, kindly welcome to the podium. Could we clap for him?
Thank you, MC. Good morning. Let me take this opportunity to welcome all of you. The MC has already introduced the guest of honor, Professor Nelson Boniface, Deputy Vice Chancellor Research, and he is representing the Vice Chancellor. The Vice Chancellor is attending another official event. Guest of honor, before you, you have physical participants and online participants. The online participants are in University of Helsinki, Finland, Jyväskylä, Finland, University of Dodoma, Tanzania, and University of Zambia in Lusaka. They are online listening to this inauguration event. A bit about NDDS, New Directions in Development Studies. This is a capacity building initiative between the 4 universities. And the aim is to help the upcoming scholars come up to the speed to be able to engage with the questions of development as they're happening now, but also to make sure they have historical roots of where we are coming from and where we are heading. The idea is to help young PhDs that are coming up to be able to navigate their times properly so that they can graduate in finish in time, but also knowing the right questions to ask and the right questions to engage with. It's an initiative that they have started last year. Last year, students went to the participants, students from Dar es Salaam. They were in Finland for 1 month, attending course, but also having time to read in libraries, and also met professors at the talks. But also this process is useful to us because it is informing our processes of curriculum development. We are debating and discussing what are the issues to include or to improve, to upgrade in our teaching curricula. And therefore, it's an exercise that has multiple benefits, not only to Dar es Salaam, not only to the students themselves, but also the curriculum that we are using to teach. This event or this activity will last for a week. Today is inaugural, and we have the day tomorrow. Then we'll have closed sessions for the remaining of the time, where we'll hear students' presentations, have time to critique, discuss their work, and also offer directions, as the project says. That is about our project. Now, without wasting much time, and I know I should also, Professor will be attending another event at 10:45. He has to attend another equally important HIT event that is happening at the university. So without wasting much time, allow me to welcome the let me request the audience to help me to welcome Professor Nelson Boniface, deliver his opening remark. Professor Nelson.
I'm delighted to stand before you to officiate this event. First of all, I'd like to thank the Almighty God for keeping us, all of us, alive so that we can witness this event. Professor Severine Rugumamu, I'm informed that you're a keynote speaker, and the former director of the Institute of Development Studies at the University of Dar, Salaam. Soka, with the current director of IDS, Dr. Fratel Shukrani Mbirigenda at the high table. Ladies and gentlemen, professors, or senior lecturers, present here physically and those online, a very good morning. I'm standing before you on behalf of the Vice Chancellor of the Professor Anangisye, who asked me to deliver his opening remarks for this very important one-week event. That is a collaborative effort between the University of Dar es Salaam, Helsinki, I'm informed, and the other universities within the country, which includes Dodoma and Zambia. I would like to inform you that the top management, including the Vice Chancellor, know your presence here, and they're happy that you are here and making this collaboration with other institutions within the country and outside, because this is aligned with the policy of making the University of Dar es Salaam great, because without collaborating with our and still get the value of the discussions. I would like to say congratulations to you, IDS and all other institutions who are participating in this event. I'm informed that there is in this cooperation, University of Helsinki, I think they are online. Is there anyone who is here? They are online, yeah? Yes. Online. And the University of Jyväskylä, if I don't pronounce it, please excuse me, from Finland. The University of Zambia, in Zambia. I'm informed of the participants from Dodoma, University of Dodoma, and the Dar es Salaam is here. Kuna mtu anayetokea Dodoma, all are from the University of Dar es Salaam. So, congratulations for making this collaborative efforts together. You know, when we rank universities, when they rank universities, one of the pillars is the collaboration, international collaborations. Working together in exchange staff, exchange of students, and more importantly, publishing together. This is so critical in collaborations. And if you have been following up, the ranking of the universities these days, they are actually insisting of this collaborative effort. If I look at the statistics of which universities the University of Dar es Salaam collaborate with within the country, we collaborate more with Nelson Mandela, followed by the University of Dodoma. which is here, within the country. So I would like to commend this by keeping the collaboration of our universities within and outside the country alive. So congratulations, IDS. Your topic is on new directions in development studies and the sustainability project. This word new actually is aligned with our recent development in reviewing our curriculum, which is the effort throughout the country. The reviews of the curriculum from primary school, secondary school to the universities should actually make sure that our graduates are well connected and that they are informed of what is going on in the industry. And we should have also collaborative efforts, not only among academia, but also with the industry outside the academic. That is also an important pillar when we think of a university which is doing well globally. I'm informed that you have PhD students who are working in this project. So having PhD students, it means that research and output. I encourage you that when your students graduate and they write their dissertations and their publications, they should be actually submitted to big journals, journals which make impact on disseminating information and which are trusted by the rest of the globe. Dear participants, I would like also to extend my deep appreciation to all participating universities, because I believe collaborative projects such as this NDDS are mutually beneficial, since they are critically for promoting visibility, as I said before. Knowledge and experience sharing. I would like to thank the government of Finland and the Finnish National Agency for Education's Education Team Finland Knowledge Program and the Global Innovation Network for teaching and learning for funding this project. These are difficult words. Yeah? I also recognize our cooperation with the University of Helsinki and the University of Jyväskylä and its different units. The Finnish collaboration has started for many years at the University of Dar, the department where I come from, the Department of Geology. I know the labs were funded by Finnish, and some of the structures here at the University of Dar since 1980s were funded by Finnish. So this kind of continuing efforts, it is actually welcome and applauded. Tuwapigie makofi. I would like to speak about the keynote speaker, Professor Rugumamu, who is the renowned international scholar for his scholarship in international relations and extensive research. He has written on foreign aid and in recent years on demystifying globalization. I'm sure we'll learn and enjoy his presentation today. Congratulations, Professor. I would like to conclude this brief speech by wishing you all the best in this one-week workshop, so that whatever come out as output or resolutions are lived, and therefore there should be harmony during the execution of the project, and the conclusion of the project should be actually giving good products and mutual benefits for North and South, so that we think of participating to have more projects in the future and even expand to include other institutions. Thank you very much for your kind attention. All the best. And I would like to declare that this workshop is officially opened, and all the best in your endeavors. Thanks.
Guest of honor, thank you very much for your opening remarks. Now that we've opened, we have the luxury of time because we were worried his commitment could kick him out of the room before we hear the speech. Allow me to recognize the presence of the following people. Director IDS, University of Dodoma, Dr. Jaz Mustafa. He is a partner in this, Dodoma is a partner in this, though he has traveled all the way. He would have chosen to be online, but because he's a partner into this, then he has taken the time to travel to Salaam for the official. We invited different people from the university, heads and deans and directors, and let's see some of the faces are represented. Thank you for coming to attend this. I hope you will help to carry the message and keep the flame of the university at that high. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Msoka, Director IDS. We can quickly have 2 group photos and then we let the DVC continue and then we move on with our program. So we have a photographer so that we can have just a high table and then maybe the project team members can join quickly. Okay, so 1 photo for the high table and then 1 photo with the project team members. And Dr. Of course, Jali can also join. Junior members also of the project from IDS, can you please join quickly? And probably 1 quick photo with IDS staff, and then that's it. I will let DVC go, and then we can move to the next step of the program. Thank you. Just quickly, please. IDS staff. Apologies to our colleagues online. It's just a little formality, but soon. Yes. All the participants? Yeah, I think we can fit into the photo. Yeah. So, all participants, if you wish, please join the photo.
But we already like it.
Or maybe 2 batches. Okay, so we have that one. So we go for the next one. Ambao walikuwa pembeni kule wanaweza kajoin inaofuata. Asanteni. Thank you very much. Asante. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, those of us who are here in the room, we can just clap for the DVC research for joining and opening our workshop. And Dr. Msoka kindly just tusaidie kumtoa mgeni wetu rasmi. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you. Okay, so as you know, this is really an intellectual event. So now we are going to have our keynote from our very own Professor Severine Rugumamu. He retired at IDS in 2015, but he's never tired. He's always with us, particularly with or through intellectual engagements. We have been debating with him. He's emphasizing that he's a former professor. I still consider him as a full professor, not really a former professor, but he was a professor of development studies here at IDS, and he obtained his PhD in political science from the University of Maryland, College Park. His research, teaching and public services were more into international relations, international political economy, and peace and strategic studies. But now he prefer more spending his time golfing and traveling and doing some community services. Ladies and gentlemen, without wasting time, I would like to welcome now to the podium to deliver the keynote, Professor Severine Rugumamu, and his keynote lecture is titled North-South Knowledge Divide, and this will be delivered by Professor Rugumamu. Karibu sana, let's clap for Professor Rugumamu, and we do attention to listen to him while he does his keynote. Karibu sana.
Kiweka chini
Yeah, I think it could be audible.
yenyewe public.
Listen.
Nataka niwe nakwenda
Sorry.
chini.
You want the slide? It is there. You want to scroll your laptop? Or you want the laptop?
The laptop, yeah.
Yeah.
Ingo itaumia.
Yeah. You don't want to hold this. So
No, nataka chini. Hapa ni chini. Chini nyama. The director of IDS, Dr. Msoka, the director of the Dean of Ceremonies, participants present, participants online. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, let me thank the IDS for inviting me to come back and engage with you after 6 years of departure. Let me thank the organizers of the New Directions in Development Studies for inviting me to come here and talk to you. My outline. My lecture is divided into 5 substantive parts. In the first section, I look at concept specification. We define the concept so that all of us will be speaking from the same book. 2, there is introduction. Here I provide the general observations of my lecture. And I'm convinced after finishing those, you can tell me to sit back, but because the rest are details that you might not be interested in following. Third part, I look at the evolution of global knowledge divide. For when does it start? Because the world was not like that before, but from a given period in time, and I'll argue after the first industrial revolution, things changed dramatically, and when we begin to see the knowledge divide, the north-south, the center periphery, developed and undeveloped, and all those nomenclatures showing the power distribution and wealth distribution in different locations of the world. Number 4, I look at manifestations of the knowledge divide. How does the knowledge divide manifest itself in different areas and spheres? 4, and finally, I look at possible mitigation strategies. how can we eliminate the knowledge divide? How can we catch up and even surpass those who are ahead of us, if at all? And then I have a few references which I invite you to look at your own time. The 5 general observations are 5. One is the North-South divide. What is? This is a social construct denoting not only changing geographical locations of countries, northern countries and southern countries, but most importantly, as a historical development process of capitalism over the last 5 centuries. The North with the relative wealth and power, and the South impoverished, weak, excluded in global decisions arenas. Those are 2. They are not just like that, but they are created, sustained, maintained, and as I will argue later, the gap is becoming wide and deep, and I will tell you strategies of coping. So when does this divide begin? I'm saying after the 4 Euro-American-based industrial revolutions from the 16th century to the present, it creates and sustained North structural asymmetries. These are asymmetries of power, imbalances in power, imbalances in wealth and influence among nations, territories, races, religions, genders, classes, etc., etc. We see superior and inferior, able, unable, weak and strong. This is not mine. So that is the starting point. The division begins to take place when Euro-American countries experience industrial revolutions. First industrial revolution, second industrial revolution, third industrial revolution. Now we are in the 4th, the digital revolution. And I don't know how you guys are. Third observation is that disproportionate knowledge assets have been instruments of colonial domination, of conquest and control of non-European nations and peoples, with imputed racist hierarchies and meanings. The third aspect, that this power, unequal relations of power, imbalances in power, has arrogated itself the silencing power to counter knowledge systems. Those which are not Eurocentric were made to keep quiet, remain in the corridors, in the backyard, like indigenous knowledge. Who teaches indigenous knowledge in these countries? I saw it's being taught in South Africa. Dependency theories, I don't know whether you still do it or you just do it as a casual stuff before you go to neoliberalism. Marxism, we used to teach that in the past. I don't think it is anymore. Decoloniality, I don't know whether you have begun doing that. Feminist theories, I'm sure Rose that does that from time to time, but whether they come up with what I'm coming to, how the North-South divide conceptualization as political. The divide is political, and therefore the solution is political. And I pose that the divide poses an existential threat to human security for countries still remaining in the global South. It is an existential threat that very soon we are likely to be maybe eliminated from the face of the earth. So what we need as a political solution, we're looking for a visionary, transformative politics, because the system itself is political. The solution of necessity have to be political. We need visionary politics and strategies that would grow the requisite power assets to mitigate structural weaknesses, to mitigate inequalities and exclusion. And failure to mitigate that, I argue, the future is too dire to contemplate. We do not know how it will be like if we do not take that political decision. So at the end, I provide 3 possible mitigating scenarios. First one is, which is socialist revolution, so reorganize relations as they used to be and do away with socialism. The second one is taming capitalism from within, make it weak and weak and weak until it disappears. The third one is what has been going on since the early 60s, multilateral dialogue at the United Nations. This will be highlighted, not discussed. All I will do is provide research questions and leave for you to do the ranking of those scenarios and possibilities of those going through. Now let's look at concepts. Knowledge. Knowledge is also a social construct or holistic ideas, symbols that provide humanity with the power to understand the natural and social phenomena around them so that they satisfy their individual and societal needs. It has evolved, knowledge has evolved from the Stone Age to the current phase. It is dynamic processes. These are dynamic processes, initially through trial and error, learning by doing and borrowing. Later, like the period we are in, globalized through research, development, and innovation as public-private goods embedded in philosophy, culture, traditions, politics of the capitalist system, more often than not. And I also, knowledge disparities or knowledge assets. The more knowledge assets you have, the more they serve as a key driver of global interactions among actors. And these actors will either be competing, cooperating, in conflict, or in war formations among groups, societies, nations, and organizations. So it's a very key instrument in organizing society in cooperative way, in competitive way, or in entering war formations, as we shall see in a moment. So the concept of North-South, as I said at the beginning, has changed variously depending on the politics of the time. At one point during colonial period, during the Cold War period, we had the First World, we had the Second World, and the Third World. And that is power and world differentials, but this time it included ideology. First World was Western capitalist countries. Second World were developed socialist countries. And Third World were the rest of us. And then we moved to developed and undeveloped countries. That was during the 60s and 70s with the Marxism and neo-Marxist theories. So we had 2 binaries of developed countries and underdeveloped countries. More recently, we are talking about weak powers, we are low income to high income countries. And as I should emphasize here, these categorizations are not static. They are constantly changing, upwards and downwards. Today, you might be a developed country. Tomorrow, you lose your rank, as the University of Dar is doing these days. You're among the first 10, and then we find you in the 70s and 80s, scrambling in the dark. So remember, during the COVID period, Mauritius belonged to the developed countries. Immediately after COVID, declined into high mid-income. After 1 year, we went back to high-income economy countries. So the concept itself is dynamically changing, and depending on what variables you are using, so you can fit yourself in that order. Now we are interested in knowledge as power. Knowledge is power, and as a private good. As I said, as power, knowledge in production, it enhances economic productivity. It increases competitiveness, bringing down costs. It can lead to winning and losing, in catching up and accelerating in competitive world. So knowledge is a very important ingredient in the global political economy world. Knowledge also, in security studies, provides senior cohesive military technology, because we do power index in the political science. It serves as a national security insurance, as a source of military superiority, as we shall see, from gunpowder to nuclear weapons, now to autonomous weapons system using artificial intelligence. Those are special military technologies that can hit that gentleman there and leave the lady there alive and well. Precision weapons, and that tells you it is insurance for those producing those weapon systems and keeping them, that they are insured from the rest. Then knowledge as soft power. Knowledge need not always be cohesive, it can be soft. So what you do appeals to others. And this is the exercise we are in knowledge diplomacy, where we have collaborative production, collaborative knowledge production, which helps to enhance cooperation and shape preferences. And as the preferences of the one ahead of you. Knowledge as soft power. So my third part of my lecture is the evolution of knowledge disparities and hierarchies. I said before the Industrial Revolution, even way back, transition from supernatural fears of anxieties, when we are afraid of the unknown, to the present period, where we have theoretical and scientific understanding of the natural phenomenon. This movement from idealism to science set Euro-American nations apart from the rest, including the Indian empires and Chinese dynasties that had been there for centuries. They became part of developing countries. And those that had gone through Industrial Revolution became first world. And hence, if you understand, read the history of India and China, China had 100 years of regret when they were conquered by different European nations, annexing part of China's ports and making China a weak nation. But from there, China said, never again. That's why the solution is political. It's not anything else. That from now on, we start growing our power so that we are able to compete, not only competing, but excel. You can now, you notice the relations between the US and China is that of dogfight type of rivalries. So the Industrial Revolution, that is research, development, and innovation, consolidated the economic and political orders based on Westphalia principles. You remember those international relations, Westphalia principles started still in 48, when we agreed that the boundaries that had been after 30-year war, we accept the boundaries in Europe and promised or solemnly accepted to keep those boundaries to strengthen nation states and accept conflict resolution through diplomacy. This, as I said earlier, it helps revolutions to multiply productivity. It renovated war machines. And hence we see European explorers trying to find where countries are because they had discovered so many ships navigation poles and guns, so they're able to go around the world, conquering small weak states, dominating them and controlling them, and establishing the international system of unequal actors with differentiated responsibilities. It is knowledge, it is science and technology that separates us from the North to the South and the South. For those who still go to church, and now this is Quaresma the divide is explained by what they call St. Matthew effect of accumulation principle. Remember the Bible 25:29? It says, for those who ever have, more shall be added unto them. And those who have very little, even that little they have, shall be snatched away from them. So this is the Bible for those who believe in it. This is what is happening. Those who started the era with the first industrial revolution, second industrial revolution, third industrial revolution, fourth industrial revolution, more is being added unto them. And some of us who are still staying idle, closing our eyes and looking to heaven, even the little that you have, as we shall see, is being taken away through knowledge piracy. The creation now, there is a creation of knowledge monopolies, with privately sanctioned utilization of new knowledge, new technology, and new processes, protected by national laws, international regulations and agreements, of patents, copyrights, industrial design. You don't simply pick and use it. You have to buy or refuse to buy or refuse to sell you because you are likely to be a competitor. Those who are following daily developments in the international political economy, you see the fight between the United States and China. They're saying we are not going to accept your 5D. You are not going to be, you will not participate in all these new technologies we are in because they're afraid China is likely to overtake them given the size of these of the population, the research networks. So the knowledge monopolies help to enhance, sustain, and deepen the knowledge disparities and hierarchies. What's the outcome of all this? We said the gap is so scandalously wide that even if, somebody has argued, even if the South grew quickly and the North is stagnated, only a few could close the gap within the next 100 years. You get that? If you accelerated your development, growth, people in the South, and the North stopped growing, you cannot close that gap, that which is expanding and deepening every year, within the next 100 years. Maybe I take that political imperative and decision, put your house in order, and see how you can catch up and go forward. So, what explains knowledge asymmetries? There are several factors. One are the governing rules and norms, which are set by the North. The monopoly gains through trade and investment regulations. This is ours, and you cannot use it. You cannot use it in the next 5, 10, 15 years. The second factor is R&D and innovation activities. Most of these are undertaken in the North, tested in the North, legitimated in the North, with limited spillover to the South, riddled with restrictive business practices. I remember some 40 years ago when I was doing my master's degree, I went to study Tanzania cigarette company. And I was asking, why are we not exporting the cigarettes we produce to neighboring Rwanda and Burundi? He said, no, the contract says you are given this license to produce for only this market. You can't export outside because they still own our patent on these cigarettes. I said, then I woke up oh, these are monopolistic commercial restrictions that have kept us where we are. Even in the new global value chains that companies agreed to relocate some parts of the production to low-cost areas, low-cost centers. Even here, allocation of low-value non-patented segments to the south in the value chain. So if you are stuck there in the low-value chain, there's no way you can transform and get out of that quagmire you are in. You are likely to stay there until you see this as an existential threat to your existence. And competition worldwide is variously constrained by trade with the enemy, legislations. So many legislations are put in place such the most recent technologies and innovations should not go beyond Europe and beyond US, let alone where we people live in the South. There are also rigid and complex procedures for patenting knowledge and innovation products from the South. Very complex procedures. There are so many ways of not allowing you to patent whatever knowledge information you have, so that at the second stage, they take it away from you. But again, we have also weak monitoring regimes in our countries for piracy practices for knowledge products and tools of the South by Southern scientists. They're even able to come and steal from us what we already have, according to St. Matthew. Let's look at very quickly at the knowledge production systems in the North. How are they organized? Because of that structural power imbalances, they establish a regime of knowledge creation, knowledge evaluation, validation, knowledge storage, and dissemination. They control the entire regime of knowledge production, dissemination, storage, use. Two, they have the power to legitimate knowledge qualities. One, theirs is called inherently superior, scientific, with universal applicability, dynamic, and open to revisions, and even refutations. Theirs is scientific. Paradigm shifts, you remember, that the knowledge you have becomes out of fashion, you come up with new ones that has greater explanatory power. The North has the power to legitimate knowledge qualities that I've finished. Third, they have a rich resource base. The North has a rich resource base of well-resourced government funding, private sector funding, multilateral institutions funding, think tank funding and research, charity organization funding and research, aid agencies, and even top-notch research-based universities doing research, and some of them commercializing the products even before they publish it. For those who have lived in, who have been to Boston, around Harvard, MIT, and all these Ivy League universities, they are surrounded by companies, by university professors. Each professor has a company, and about 10 doctoral students and postdoc doing research and development. And you are encouraged to commercialize what you have produced and forget about publishing and big money. I spent 5 years, 6 years in North Carolina. They have what they call the research triangle of North Carolina, where you have Duke University, North Carolina University, North Carolina State University in one big area. It's called the research triangle. And around the research triangle, you have hundreds of companies belonging to professors. They are PhD students and postdoc doing research, development, and innovation. That's how universities work. And I'm sure Mr. Musoka is thinking about that. Very soon around Murimani area park there, encouraging best and the brightest students to establish research, innovation centers, so that part of their dissertation is developed into something new, products or processes. And then the knowledge centers are richly networked. They have flexible access to the global best and the brightest researchers, the best and the best, the best and the brightest. Wherever you are, you have a price on you. They'll pick you up. They have the best universities. If you do the ranking, do look at whatever company is doing the ranking, you'll find the best 100 universities, the best research universities belong to the North. And some of our universities, they are 1,000 plus. They have the best libraries. Can you imagine if you go to Duke Library, you'll find yesterday's Uhuru na Mzalendo in the library. The planes takes those newspapers for storage, for their own purpose, for security information, for whatever, but make sure the collecting and the gathering of information are the best. Databases, they have the best databases where the best published works are stored. Mr. Musoka, I don't know why you people store your own stuff, but you may also consider being, if you can't beat them, you join them. They do comparative studies. Not country studies, not Tanzania, not villages, several villages in Tanzania. They do comparative studies, 10 African countries. Thereafter, you come with a comparative, discernible image of what you found out. But I remember, if you ask your donors to study 4 or 5 countries, they say, you are not in that business. Yours is country-specific, a knowledge that cannot be generalized. So that is dependency that we suffer from being dependent on. Yes. So comparative studies, the best tested validity theories and models are able to publish in high-impact outlets and privately owned websites. And finally, knowledge products are easily commercialized and protected by national and international regulations. I know at the University of Dar es Salaam, you have a patent office, but I'm not sure you have the best entrepreneurs to market that new knowledge, new information for business. I'm not sure. I left 6 years ago. Times must have changed. Now let's look at the knowledge production system in the South, where we live. Our traditional knowledge systems have been rated inferior by these guys. They have been called non-scientific, non-dynamic, and they endure systemic silencing. That if you want to publish, you don't go back to traditional knowledge. If you want your paper out, you join them so as to beat them, if you can. But our current post-colonial knowledge systems of universities, research institutions, think tanks are defined by their dependence on the northern system, dependent. We are considered net consumers of knowledge products from the North, with limited input in processing, production, and storage. I was talking to the friend here, Ajore and the Scopus and Web of Science and Crossref. How many of our works are found there, if we call ourselves academicians? Dependent also on imported theories and models and methodologies, and even languages. That's why we are communicating in English rather than our national language. We still carry that big baggage until we reach a point and said, forget about these imperialist languages. Let's communicate, since we can all speak and understand Kiswahili. Let's communicate in Kiswahili and feel independent and autonomous scholars, but we are not. How about the division of labor in the production process? We understand that southern experts are assigned as data collectors and logistic managers. Where shall we go? Where do we talk to? How do you translate these local languages into and not interpreters of what you find out? Worse still, our research endeavors are underfunded, understaffed, with low professional morale, dependent on the research funding, dependent on areas of research, dependent on their libraries and databases. You see, the dependency goes through and through. That's why I call it an existential threat to our human security. We are dependent on foreign reviewed outlets, foreign journals. Understand, you talk about for promotion, you need a few papers from here and quite a number from the north. If you don't meet that standards, you're not called a scholar. You can see, even at this highest institution of learning, we still adhere to those backward thinking. Then you can look at the papers you have written, how many times you refer to your fellow, the works of your fellow scholars. How many times? How many times? You don't refer to your fellows. You need those people in order to be considered legitimate scholar. So that's what I'm saying. We need a political revolution to have it upside down. And even referencing, I understand there are a few initiatives throughout the South to create autonomous, socially relevant knowledge, technology, and innovation at the initial stages. But as I said, these initiatives are likely to be, if not well organized, to be torpedoed by powers that are. When I go to my first section of my presentation, manifestations of this knowledge divide. What indices are you looking at? If you want to see this is South and this is North, you are looking at the size of economies, you are looking at expenditure on research and development and innovations, you are looking at patents, applications, and the recognitions, copyright, trademarks filed, number of publications, websites, and databases. If you look at all those, as I argue, there's nothing to write home about where you are. I provide a few statistics. Look at 38 OECD countries with a GDP of $59 trillion in 2023, with a 41.1 of the global total. R&D expenditures of 2.7 of combined GDP. 2.7 combined GDP on research, development, and development. Look at US in 2023 with a GDP of 27 trillion, which is the 25.1% of the global total. 2021, R&D expenditure was 3.6. In 2023, 112 patents were issued by US Patent and Trademark Office, all those. China, the growing China. GDP in 2023, it was 17.5 trillion, 18% of the global. R&D expenditure was 2.5 GDP. 1.8 million patent applications were filed. And China has 31% of global manufacturing output and has 19% of science and engineering articles in Scopus. 39% of articles in Scopus. Let's see Africa. As I said, nothing to write home about. Africa spends 0.4% of GDP on R&D. That is last year. It is below the target of 1% and below the global level of 1.7. You see how badly we are doing. Hakuna mchawi, hakuna nani. 2020, 0.5 of global patents applications of the global, 0.5. As compared to Asia, 66%, 66.6, and America was 19%, Europe 10.9%. 3, less than 3% of global research articles in Web of Science and the Scopus database. And our African Journal Online, AJOR, is poorly known among us and ineffectively used. So the ball is in our court. I was asking the director before I came here whether our IDS journal is already on its way to Scopus. He said, yes, we are on the way. Let's find out. Keep us posted. And then, as I said, these inequalities have made Africa, the South, weak, vulnerable, and excluded in decision-making circles. So here, I provide research questions. I will not go into the scenario, 3 scenarios. I only provide 3, I provide guiding questions that can help us to tell us where we are. Number 1, I start with the North-South divide as a political question. It is a political question. So I ask, what emancipatory national regional strategies are necessary to generate, accumulate, and use knowledge to mitigate this weakness, these inequalities, and exclusion? What strategies? As I said, without those strategies, the future is dire. Number 2, how should the irreconcilable North-South norms and values and interests be navigated? There are areas there they don't cross this, don't cross that. Number 3, which is equally interesting here, what mutual existential threats and vulnerabilities should serve as entry points for multilateral negotiations to mitigate North-South divides? Mutual threats, climate change, terrorism, nuclear proliferations, how can those serve as entry points in our negotiation processes in order to mitigate the knowledge divide? But interestingly, moreover, what combination of ideologies could sustainably mobilize various anti-globalization movements? There are so many, with each new issue areas, different issue areas. What type of ideologies can bring these disparate movements together for a greater good? Next, what specific global challenges should be issue linked? In international relations, we talk about linking issues. We don't one issue at a time. You link different issues. You can link climate change and security and look at it together, negotiate it together. So which ones are linkable and by whom? In order to enhance multi-actor engagement for North-South struggles and negotiations. Last but one, what combination of buy-in strategies should possibly positively enhance state sector engagement? It's not only state actor, state organs to participate in understanding what is facing us and be part and parcel of this struggle. And finally, the standard thing is look at strengths, weaknesses, challenges, and opportunities of each scenario. I'm not going through those scenarios. I will let you go through yourselves, but there are 3. One is multilateral North-South dialogue. This has been going on since the 50s. Multilateral at the UN, AU, ACP, G20, non-aligned movement, and so on and so on. What are Southern demands? What do we want? There are several demands here. democratization of global governance institutions and decision-making, so that global governance institutions are made participatory and inclusive. The World Bank, IMF, the Security Council. 2, they are demanding economic growth through trade, investment, aid, and technology transfer, and income inequalities. These are our demands. 3, they're looking for national political economy and independence. 4, preservation of territorial integrity from external fragmentation. 5, maintenance of domestic regime stability. 6, global environment, global peace, security, and stability. Those are some of the demands. They are political demands, but who is driving the charge? We said at the beginning, you need what they call visionary and transformative leadership. Not an individual. Transformative leadership is collective leadership. It's collective leadership, where all key stakeholders participate in understanding and explaining and interpreting the vision where you want to go. Not an individual's endeavor. We still lack that. What are the demands from the North? The North demands that the global North remain sacrosanct. Don't change them. This is how we have lived, this is how we have survived, and this is how we want to live. They're demanding contested visions of the possible futures are still debatable. Where do you want to take us? Who knows what it is? They want issues to be splitting issues. They're demanding no issue linkages at all. They need prioritizing and sequencing of your demands, not all at the same time. They want to be clear on sharing roles and responsibilities and issue-based timelines. That is the North. Negotiations. We have been doing this since the early 60s to the present. And as we see, the results, the result is deaf, the dialogue of the deaf. There are minimal concessions, unfulfilled promises, shifting of goalposts, first-class interests of negotiators from the South. So those don't take us far. That is one solution, one way of looking at mitigating the knowledge imbalance, North and South. The second vision is taming and weakening capitalism from within. How do you weaken capitalism from within? Issues is conscientizing citizens about the problems engendered by global capitalism and the imperative of dignified life. That is mobilizing them. And then we need mobilization and sustained action by agents of every anti-capitalist movement and organization already practicing norms of democracy, egalitarianism, and solidarity. 3, strengthening and scaling up socialist building blocks of cooperatives, progressive political parties, solidarity-based producer-consumer networks, transition towns, eco-villages, big growth communities, and in the process, we gradually dwarf capitalism in the long run. By systematic weakening of institutional pillars of the system, ideologically, institutionally, and organizationally. And as I said earlier, we need buy-ins from state organs, the government, the courts, parliament, political parties, and the media to be part of this struggle. And I said it's long, protracted processes, limited outcomes, regular state rescue operations, like when you have all these economies going to the down, organizational weakness of disparate anti-capitalist movements. And this is the favorite of them all, is smashing capitalism as an alternative system. How do you do that? By envisioning an alternative democratic, socialist, political, and economic system, institutions, and values. So you build a new system on the ashes of the old. Here, we need realigning of domestic class forces and negotiating compromises among historical victims of workers, peasants, intelligentsia, civic society, and politicians. We need an ideology based on moral foundation of egalitarianism, democracy, solidarity, and sustainability. We progressively to neutralize harm and risks of the old system by promoting and protecting solidarity ways of economic organization, investment, production, and distribution. Last but one, strengthening and consolidating democratic socialist governance and institutions and egalitarian norms and practices. Last, resisting capitalist remnants of wage cuts, of the power of managers and owners, and the harsh capitalist working conditions where people have to work on 2 or 3 jobs before they can manage to cope in a declining environment. But again, we see the downside, the capitalist state rescue operations from time to time, bailing out failing corporations, too big to fail, organizational weaknesses of working classes and allied forces, working class ideologies diminishing our peers, particularly in the US, where you see a gradual deunionization of the labor class and the bourgeoisie of the middle classes. Middle classes think, act as if they are bourgeois. With that, Mr. Chairman, I finish and I provide references for my comrades to look at, refresh, ask me questions, and I beg to sit.
Thank you very much, Professor Severine Rugumamu, for such research, but also thought-provoking keynote. Ladies and gentlemen, those of us who are online and those in the room, it's time now to have the discussions, questions, and after this keynote presentation, which is focused on the North-South knowledge divide.
The online people.
Online people, if there is a hand, we will let you speak, please. It's time for discussion, questions, and answers. You're warmly welcome. I see Musa, are you in a position to ask or contribute already? Musa Kapenja? Not ready? Okay, so Vedasto, let us know when somebody online is ready. We'll just put the mic on the speaker of the digital conferencing tool. But those in the room also, karibuni sana for questions and contributions to this very well presented keynote. Dr. Rubakula, can you give him the mic, please? Introduce yourself, because that one. Okay. Introduce yourself and yeah, straight to what you have to contribute, please.
Thank you, Professor. My name is Dr. Nelson Boniface. I'm very much interested in this presentation, and I learned a lot of things because I also teach in the same area. So I have 2 questions. The first question I want to know, what exactly stops us from implementing the suggested ways to mitigate the logical impediment of sound? The second question, the well-known 2 research database that you mentioned, Scopus and Web of Science, our Western coined research database. And of course, they belong to the Western private companies. Don't you see that strengthening African-based research database is a good move towards maybe preparating ourselves from being dependent from these Westerners? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we cross-check if those who are online are able to speak or to say something? Anyone who can say something for us to be sure that we are together with the technology, please?
Okay, can you hear me? I'm from Helsinki, Ilmari here.
Yes, please, we hear you.
Okay, thank you.
So if you don't have anything, just checking that we are together, right? You don't have anything to contribute right now?
That is correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I see a hand from Dr. Soka. Karibu.
Thank you, MC. Many thanks, Professor, for your good presentation, and you touched a number of areas. But I'm interested to hear more about the dialogue with the diff. Who are the diffs here? Because is it the South-South who are talking, or North and South, and one is diff, not listening to the other? You know, to be interested to understand this, because if we deconstruct that, we'll be able to see the parts of the problem. And who is not hearing, who is what? Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe we'll take one more and then we revert back to the keynote speaker, Dr. Ajani Karibu.
Thank you for this opportunity, Professor. That was a very good presentation. One of the focus of this project that brought us here together is to identify, define the new emerging core competencies, future development studies graduates. Now, in the context of wide and deepening gap, disproportionate of assets, structural power, and silencing counter knowledge that I grasped from your presentation, I just wanted to get your comment. How can we address this focus of our project?
Thank you very much, Director of IDS from University of Dodoma. Now we bring the mic back to Professor Rugumamu to respond to those of you, and then we'll take another round and we'll continue. Anyone online with something to contribute, just stay tuned and then I will invite you. Karibu, Professor Rugumamu, for the response.
Thanks very much for the 4 questions I got from the floor. Very, very insightful questions. But in my presentation, I was not coming up with the answers. It's the answers. I'm just proposing issues. There are so many suggested ways of eliminating this knowledge gap. So many. But what prevents us from implementing them? You know better than I do. Starting point is no political will. Why is it that we are discussing new directions of development studies in English? Why? Who prevents us from teaching Kiswahili to those people listening to us from wherever they are? Who prevents us? Where is the political will? You may talk about the resources. Where are the resources? Are they willing actually to learn your new languages? But if you are talking about collaborative knowledge production, then we should be able to talk to each other in the languages we understand best. Who told you we understand English better than our Kiswahili? I don't think so. This is a mother language. It's so nuanced in different ways. And the English remains foreign as far as I'm concerned. Who prevents us? The first one is political will. There's no political will move us from point A, point B with emancipatory visionary thinking. And it should come from you guys. Visionary, emancipatory thinking. Come up with new theories, new models that address our problems. The job is yours. It's in your court. It's not with me. I'm a retired old man. All is in your court. Not asking me questions, but coming up with answers. Answers. What answers from you? The databases, yes, the famous prominent databases belong to the North. Who prevents us from making a journal move to higher levels? Who prevents us? Who prevents you guys having journals that you publish in, put them in a journal, and put the development studies journal to higher levels, or creating your own with the South? Get out of that place, that quagmire. Prepare our own databases. Respect our own journal outlets. But most importantly, let's read each other. Know what Shukrani is writing about. Shukrani should know what the director is writing, and say, oh yes, I read something from Zoka. I didn't know this. Maybe in my next paper, I will be interrogating his conclusions. Why don't we do that? We end up rushing to dealing with a loss we don't even know. So, databases create our own. Make us know they exist, and let us have our journals stored in those third world or the South databases that we know. They should be multiple, then we should be proud of them. But if you are still having see them as low value, not superior, not you're looking for journals that can easily promoted to a higher rank, then you're not even a nationalist and defeated, and we should run away from you. North-South as a dialogue of the deaf. Who is deaf? Dialogue of the deaf literally means you are not deaf, but you are talking past each other. You are talking past each other. The premises of your negotiations are not both by participants in the dialogue. We looked at the southern demands. The southern demands are irreconcilable on the demands. But where is the middle ground? How can we ensure that we link, as I said, we link issues? Look at issues that are of most of vulnerability as the entry points. We start with those, from the simpler to manage to the more complex issues to manage, but we should start somewhere. New competencies in development studies. There are competencies where we are. We have to know that the competencies that we have had have not helped us at all. I was looking at one article a few days ago. Since independence, Africa has tried, I think, 10 or 12 development strategies. I found them in Africa. 10 development strategies from 1960. But we are still stuck in the mud. All these are not ours. It's knowledge produced from outside. Why don't we sit back and see and say, to move forward, what should we? Collective thinking, collective interrogation. And ourselves say, this is our way forward. And I've said, the way forward is political. Political. Agreeing we want to go forward. If we do, what is the leadership? Leadership is not individual, as I said, it's collective leadership, transparent leadership. Not of short term, the long term leadership thinking. And you can put that even in your constitution, that A, B, C, D will not change. Appropriation to research and development should not be less than 1% of the budget in your constitution. What's wrong with that? Why are we afraid of doing that? 1% should go to research, development, innovation every financial year. Who is preventing us? If not our stupidity and ignorance. Who's preventing us? Thinking new ideas, new theories of development. Moving away from critiques. Critiques. Yes, we love critiques, but we want a way forward over and above critiques. What should we do? What should be done? This is your job. Sit back collectively, not individually hiding in your office. Collectively having seminars and say, this is a way forward, because we have discussed with one old man. He said, the term going forward is a political question. We have to agree collectively that if we don't change our way of doing, the prospective future, as I said at the beginning, is too troubling to contemplate.
Thank you. There was a hand from online, so maybe we will hear from that and then we continue. Welcome the person who raised their hand from online.
Professor Johan Karibu.
Yeah, asante. This is Juhani Koponen from Helsinki University. Thank you very much for your very thorough review of this knowledge gap between North and South, and also for the efforts to mitigate it. But there was one thing I was left wondering. You emphasized very strongly that this is a political question. It needs a political solution, and the way forward is political. But in your concept specifications, you didn't actually define what do you mean by politics and political. What is political? Is it something that we discuss and debate and work together on common affairs, and then we finally can agree when everyone sees the light, when everyone understands what is at stake? Or is it something which always involves an element of conflict, struggle, exercise of power? And if your understanding is the latter one, which I would suspect, how is that conflict then resolved politically? What is your definition for that?
Thank you. I think you have been heard. There's another hand. Karibu. Welcome the other person who would like also to ask or contribute. Godfrey?
Yeah, hello.
Hello.
Thank you, Prof, for the thorough discussions or your take on this global South knowledge divide. I'm sort of a little bit confused here, and I will be grateful if you can explain this confusion in my mind to me, to the best of your ability. You talked about how do you decouple? I'm asking you, how do you decouple competencies from political decisions and say they have failed? Because you seem to dwell on that the competencies that have been developed over the years have not achieved their aim or its aim. Especially when you call for what I myself term as political emancipation, political decision emancipation. So you have to emancipate from what is being done within the global South. So how do you decouple this failure from political decisions?
Thank you, Godfrey. Dr. Shukrani Mbirigenda has a question here from the room. You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Professor Rugumamu. I have one question. You talked about political decisions that need to be made in order for us to go forward. And you talked about the language. Now, between the language and the knowledge production, which one should start in this political will? Because I'm seeing that if we do not produce knowledge, then changing language is not going to help us. Actually, we are only going to kind of simply translate knowledge from other languages to Kiswahili. So which one should we start? Should we start with a political will to generate our own knowledge, or should we start with changing of the language?
Thank you. So we get responses for those few questions, and then we go to another round. Professor Rugumamu, you're welcome.
Thanks very much. The debate is still revolving around that the way forward is political question. Indeed, it is a political question rather than anything else. If you decide to go to have large-scale industrialization, it is a political decision. If you want to go small-scale industry, it is a political question. If you want to do away with tertiary education, as the World Bank told us in 1986, that third world countries south do not need universities, all they need technical and skill development. It is a political question. So what do we need? And here it's a question among ourselves. Sit back and discuss, interrogate what has held us back for those 60 years. What has held us back? Collectively, not individually, collectively. What is it that we have failed to move from point A to point Z? Once we put that down and we all agree that these issues have held us back, then you decide which way to take. That's also a political issue, a political question. These are political questions. And if you want ideological question, are we going capitalist, socialist, or anarchist? These are political questions. Where do we start? And these questions should be collectively settled. We are talking about inclusive institutions, collective political institutions that brings us all together as workers, as peasants, as intellectuals. What is it that has been holding us back? Once you agree on that, and you don't talk about language. Language is secondary because you communicate things in language. You can communicate even in your vernacular once you know exactly what you want and the language you understand best. Language is a medium. You can use any medium to think through. But that medium comes with vocabularies. Remember how we have been looking at the South, North and South. It has been changing all the time to suit the demands of the time. Whether it is center, periphery, center, semi-periphery, periphery, all these things have been changing to suit the interests of the North. It is North and South. We understand even in the North, they have their own South. But we should also use that South in the North. We are partners in thinking through what can we do to change our status quo. All these are political issues, political decisions, but which are collectively arrived at. Which competencies? As you deliberate, you look at which competencies you need. You need engineers to do the research and development. You need technicians to do the who do you need and in what ratios? And to do what? What type of research and development should they do? Is it artificial intelligence? Is it moving from electricity that is on and off to solar? Solar is here every day. Why haven't we thought about that? We need solar. Come at my house. I use solar and solar. Why don't we think about the solution to our energy problem when we have the resource here in abundance? In abundance. You don't need to go to Europe to collect the sun. It is here every day, 12 hours. What makes us accept the reality that we need this God-given power from the sun to generate power? We have able to enjoy the benefits of light, benefits of production using electricity, electrical power, solar power. What stops us from going that? What I need is a political decision for us to sit back and see what type of resources do we have? Which ones should we tackle first? In what sequence? Who should do what? Whose responsibilities is? But you have a long-term development emancipatory strategy, which we have a buy-in from all sectors of society. Becomes our project. Our project. Like I said, unless we do that, we are in big trouble.
Thank you, Professor Rugumamu, again for the response. Myself, I have 3 questions. My first question will contribute to the debate on the North-South, and it will rather dwell into the the division itself, the split of what is north and what is south. In my own PhD, I discovered that when we look at China and India and consider themselves as our fellow southern partners, it is something political when it comes to post-Bandung and the solidarity when it comes to the divide of the North and the Western, particularly the big hegemonic powers like United States and some European states. But when it comes to knowledge and technology, it appeared that, or it came out that China is actually very highly advanced in some areas like satellite technologies and ICTs, to the extent that we don't speak together in the same language as the South. So my question is this also something which is rather politically constructed, or are we always together with these other states which we refer to as the fellow South? Or otherwise, maybe the knowledge divide could be also equally between North-South and some South-South. So that is my first question. My second questions, maybe I'll start with a quote from Mahmoud Mamdani, professor from Makerere. He says, colonialism not only brought theory from the West, but also the assumption that theory is produced in the West, and actors in the South are directed at the application of such. The subjugation and subordination of the South is very, very much woven into the fabric of our mindset in the South. So the indices, the institutions like World Trade Organization, but also indicators like innovation indicators and so on, they are designed in such a way that they make us in the South believe that we are inferior to those in the North. So last week, I think, there was a report which showed that Tanzania is the third happiest country in the world, right? And there's already a very heated debate within ourselves that that is not true, that is not possible. We have electricity rationing, there's no way out, we'll be happy and all that. So we within ourselves believe that there's no way out we can be happier than people in the West. So my question, is it about the mindset in the South as well, or is it always about the institutions like the multilaterals which have been designed or constructed by the West? My third question, in the research, and this will be a question posed to the people in the New Directions in Development Studies and Sustainability team, because here I see collaborators from the South and from the North. I've been doing impact evaluation of collaborative research programs involving scholars from the North and the South. And one thing which I've discovered is, because most of the time resources and funds for research comes from the North, most of the time PIs will come from the North. Decisions are always made by those who are in the North. Many times the ones who are in the South are made to be either data collectors or they don't have always powers and authority to make decisions in those projects. Is this also the case for your project? And I will also finalize by giving one just little example. There was one time I was doing evaluation and I discovered that the PI of the project was not giving sufficient amount of field funds for the scholar, for the PhD scholars who are in the South. And I asked them, why didn't you give them the funds which are determined by the institutions which host them here in the South? And he said, the daily subsistence allowance defined by your institution and so by your government are very high, to the extent that 2 nights of this guy will be more than a monthly minimum wage of this country. So this will create inequality. And to me, that was very frustrating. Thank you. Maybe I take some, there's a question online. Yes. Sululu, Karim, welcome.
Thank you. Hello.
Yes.
Do you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Okay, thank you, Professor Rugumamu, for the good presentation that you took us on the North-South knowledge divide. To myself, I was very much interested with the topic and the presentation as a whole. But let me go direct to what Professor took us on the mitigations, what others said, and even the moderator speak about the dilemmas. Even myself, I'm in a dilemma on the solutions. One of the solutions, the professor said that we should have the visionary transformative politics That means we need to have the collective political decisions. So my worry in this journey of transformation is how can we possibly be able to have this collective political decision that will direct us in political economy that will reflect the Global South development initiatives. Because nowadays we see the division among ourselves. Political leaders have been divided themselves. They have their own directions, which sometimes have been emanated from the global north. So how can we reach this journey of decisions, having these visionary leaders who are transformative, while within ourselves in the global south, we are divided ourselves in political decisions? That's my word. I submit.
Thank you very much. Should we have response to those who we take maybe one more in the room? Yes, I see a hand there.
Thank you, Professor, for a very nice presentation. I am Finance from IDS. I got a very critical point on the issue of finding the entry on the mutual interest, in mutual rates like environment, terrorism, and others, which is very interesting. What I have is not a question, but some kind of contradiction. The issue is they have already found something to intimidate or to control the development of the South using the 10th rates, like the issue of environment. They might control us sometimes because of the name of human rights, the name of environmental degradation and other, like you don't have to industrialize because they have, we will destroy the environment even further, but they do so. The issue is, the world system is theoretically having an anarchy system, but the truth is you have a very powerful organization like the UN and others, which are used by those powerful nations, the North actually, to intimidate or sometimes to make decisions for the South countries. And African countries, mostly as one part of the South, we don't have that power to control those organizations. So even if we have a political will, how capable are we to make those northern countries to maybe can we even have a power to put sanctions as they do to us? No, we can't. So maybe we can start by having combining the power among the Southern themselves. Like we can have a political, a high political bargaining power if we have a unit first. Because Tanzania as Tanzania cannot make us rate or make any decision sensible towards the United States, for example. But at least if we join hands among African states themselves or among the Southern, we can at least have a power to make the North hear what we are saying. But the issue again comes, even the unit between the Southern itself might sometimes change because we have different national interests. So if today we have a common enemy, and if that enemy had ceased to exist, we can turn against each other. So we need the unity, but in terms of with having a very cautious ways of having that unity. Unless political will itself cannot be enough to control or to have a say against the United Nations and the northern countries at large.
Thank you, Finance. Severine, please.
Thanks very much. Great intervention. Let me pick a few, since most of the issues are addressing on the way forward. Now, what we are because of our weakness. Because we are weak, we are manipulative. So the strategy is how to strengthen ourselves, how to accumulate collective power of the South. This is the only way. Going individually, you won't win. You want collective strength. Together we stand. Individually we fall. So why don't we think strategically how we can combine our strength as Southerners? And I said, without combination, we are perishing. That's the only way. We are out to perish. That's why I call it an existential threat. It's perishing. So in order not to perish, we should be together collectively. How do we jointly collectively put together our strength to think independently. What do we want? It's not what they want. What do we want? We want power, strength. So how do we accumulate that strength? Who are our friends in the South? Who are our friends in the North? The North are equally suffering. People are, not everybody in the North is in the North. We have a lot of colleagues, friends, groups that sympathize what we are doing and suffer from the same system. So let us look for ways of collaboration to accumulate strength in order to articulate what we want to go forward. Mine is together we stand, individually we fall. And it's not only ourselves in the South, but we have a lot of friends suffering from the same plight in the global North. But we start with thinking. Remember, one South African freedom fighter said, the best way, the best method to control the weak is to control their mind, their thinking, so that they're always seeing everything is difficult. No. Let us see we can do it. We can do it by collectively thinking our way forward. And this is a political decision. How do we go forward to accumulate, strengthen our power to think independently, to identify what we want and move forward? China and India did that a long time ago. China since 1949. Never again after the revolution. That now we want to compete on equal level. So they put together strategies of moving forward. And they have been moving forward ever since. They have never looked back. They have never looked back. Look at what they're doing. Thinking politically what is good for us, what is likely to enhance our fighting power, our strength, our ability to think independently. You talk about theories, models, and these are all from the North to solve their own problems. And theories to control us, to dominate us, to think like them, to show us how we can get out of this bottomless. Leave that to us. We have the capacity to think independently, to identify what, if you're talking about issues, which issues will come first. The lady said, yes, we can link issues where we are mutually victims to global climate change, all of us. But again, how do we approach it? How does we all suffer? But again, we suffer disproportionately. We suffer more when they pollute more. We suffer more when we pollute less. And mitigation strategies are, not what they should be, because we are told we shall give you this much. If you do this, we shall give you that much. If you do, why don't we say, now we are on our own, we shall take our future in our own hands and move forward. And it is your job to think through new development studies, new visions. Yeah, I'm still waiting for the visions from you guys. What are those new visions of development that are emancipatory?
Yeah, you can pass the mic to Dr. Msoka. I think he got the thought quickly from your discussion.
Thank you, Professor. I like the spirit where you started from. Together we stand. And I'm thinking of the first question that you posed in your list of questions when we were talking about. And I'm trying to think, what if in the South we create what we might call higher education areas where, like the North Carolina Triangle, Research Triangle, the Boston Corridor, etc., or the Valley and the Caribbean. What if we do regional higher education areas in Africa that will allow us to integrate knowledge from all these other countries in Africa so that we can come up with a strategy that's much stronger and able to confront the divide we have, all the challenges we are posing here? Would that not work? respond.
Very briefly, immediately before I give you the mic, Professor Rugumamu, I have one interesting thing you talked about that in 1986, the World Bank said that the South actually doesn't need higher education. We simply need the tertiary to prepare the technicians and the answers. I'm interested in that. What is your opinion? Because it looks like with the new curricula, that is exactly what we are doing. We are moving away from university and we are creating technicians. And do you think this is the solution to the problems we are having, or actually we are moving far from it?
I can assure you, the World Bank has never retreated. The 1986 proposal that the South doesn't need tertiary education still stands. I was reading Professor Samov's work. It's not what is written in their papers, in their reports, that now we are moving into increasing tertiary education. Right at the implementation, look at where the funds are going. The funds are likely to have the so-called universities, but they're not universities. You can't have a university that's teaching. University has to produce new knowledge. So the government has to invest in research. That 1% of government budget should be sent to universities and the think tanks to think through on our way forward. But if the government is still redesigning, then you know what you're in for. The 1986 World Bank report still stands. The huge thing you are doing now takes you back to 1986, only that it has changed the language, but you are still doing the same because you cannot think independently. And whoever has the purse does what? Sets the tune, and you people are just simply dancing. What Dr. Musoka is saying is there is no need for proliferation of universities. All over 20, 30 universities. You might need those as they do in the US. You have liberal arts college. They don't do research. Just teach, give degrees, and let people go to graduate school. That's where research is. But for everybody, knowledge of a BA degree, BSc is, you know. So what we need here are regional university centers. Regional university centers, the elite centers, the Harvards, the Stanfords, the MITs of these countries to do the thinking, the new knowledge production, to participate in real thinking, interrogating old ideas, discarding old ideas, coming up with new ideas that requires a critical mass thinkers, environment that allows them to think, enabling the resources to think, and the acceptance of what you come up with. So every week you should be gathered here. What is new in the university? What is new? I remember one day I told Dr. Musepo I was going to Musewe one Saturday. I found the university parking lot empty. I said, oh, where are the scholars gone? They don't read anymore. They have big libraries at home, or they are online libraries in a place where power is on, outages are more often than, so we need to have regional knowledge centers for Eastern Africa. You put your best and the brightest to the job of thinking, of discarding all irrelevant ideas, new strategies, and even where necessary, even bring those ideas to the public. This is what we think. This is our way forward. Collective, transparent thinking. Test your ideas on the rest. But we need to have those regional knowledge centers. But if you allow everybody to call himself or herself going to a university, we are kidding ourselves. We are kidding ourselves. Go to China. China, they have new centers of knowledge. Go to South Korea, Korea. Yes, they even have a full-fledged women universities. Women universities taught by men and women, but particularly to empower these girls and women. BA, BSc, MSc, PhD, all disciplines to empower women. That's how we empower women. Thinking outside the box. How do you empower women? Not mixing them with boys, no. Give them a full-fledged university, women university, BSc, MSc, PhD, postdoc, research centers around. They deal with other knowledges, but with women gender issues.
Okay, I hear some applause to that point. We still have time. I wish to hear also from colleagues from University of Zambia, but also Jyväskylä. At the same time, we still have some time. I would just like to remind you that tomorrow we have the second keynote titled Decolonising Development Studies, Voices from the South, and it will be delivered by our own Dr. Mbirigenda. Any other hand for contribution? Vedasto, welcome.
Thank you very much. The debate of the way forward, in my perspective, is a bit controversial and a difficult topic to ponder, because in my opinion, I think when we say we should, it has been my reflection ever since. We should. What is we? We means collective. Do we have we? We should ask ourselves a question. Do we have we? Even in our very own institutions, do we have we? And if we are calling for political solution as a means, which kind of politics are we having? Few elite holding the decision for many, and we have what we are calling now scholars becoming chowers, saving the politicians. So which kind of politics do we want do we entrust it as a system which will take us to the land of milk and honey? In my opinion, we should rather come with a more robust and realistic solution, rather than believing that our kind of politics in Africa will take us where we want to go. Reflecting from Nyerere's speech in 1997 in 40th anniversary of Ghanaian independence, he said, without unity, there is no future for Africa. And he was trying to show how his vision of a slow movement toward the continental unit was a failure, agreeing and acknowledging that Nkrumah was right. Because if people who were then given presidents started having their very own national anthem, motorcades and so forth, they became greedy, believing that they cannot surrender what they have in order to realize what we call the continental unit. So I think we need to continue. This lecture should be the spark toward continuing discussion on the workable solution, rather than believing that our very own system which we are surviving on can make things happen. In my opinion, we need to be very critical on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Vedasto. Any hand here in the room again to contribute? Yes.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Halidi Mfumbili. I am a third-year student pursuing Bachelor of Arts in Development Studies. I have a very quick question, and I need everyone to modify. To me, I thank the professor for the good presentation, but I have some of critics. Starting with this dialogue. To me, what I think is that dialogue itself, without initiatives, without actions, does not change anything. Those countries, we have a lot of dialogues. we have a lot of discussions, but our discussions does not change anything. Why? Because it ends up on books. So what's supposed to be done? To me, I would suggest on the following things. One, we need to have open access centers where everyone, all scholars, can have access to gain a new knowledge. As Professor Rugumamu said, we need to have regional university centers. So we are the scholars nowadays, or people in South, we have a lot of discussions, but we don't take actions. That's why we have failed. So what we're supposed to do now, we're supposed to have these dialogues, these discussions, and also suggest the initiatives or way forward, and we're supposed to take action on that. Without doing so, we will never change or will never solve this problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Coleman has a hand, but also Rugumamu wanted to react quickly. So we go to Coleman first and then Rugumamu.
It's not really a hand. I wanted to invite the following people to make sure they have a voice before we come to the close. Professor Barry Gills from Helsinki, Tina Continent, Dr. Ajali, these are partner institutions. Dr. Ajali, please consider, I will have a word before we come to a close. And UNZA, University of Zambia.
Monga is around. Monga is around.
Monga, we'd like to hear a word from the partner institutions before we come to a close.
Sure. So Rugumamu responds to the last discussion, and then I will go step by step to the partners. And I would invite them not only just to react to the keynote itself, but to say anything related to the project or any debate around the topic which we had from the keynote. Professor Severine Rugumamu, please.
Thanks very much. I'm just responding to a gentleman who said the way forward is who are the we. We know the we, the oppressed, the exploited, the marginalized. Those are the we who are not benefiting from the status quo. If you remember the Arusha Declaration, we have been exploited a great deal, excluded a great deal, marginalized a great deal. It is now time to intervene so that we become strong. That's Arusha Declaration, 1967. It's because of our weakness that you get exploited, marginalized, and excluded. So who are these? These are the we. And as I said, from the center, from the north, and from the south, those who are suffering from these historical capitalist injustices can coalesce when you have a dynamic mobilization ideology, so that we look forward to a new future, a new world global dispensation that enshrines justice, equality, and dignity.
Thank you. So between Professor Barry, Gills, and Tina Continent, any one of you can start just responding or contributing or saying anything, either related to the project or to the discussion of today, please. Tina, I can see you on the dock there. Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Rugumamu, for the... I am unmuted. I can see my own voice. You cannot hear me.
Still cannot hear you, Tina. Can you unmute your mic?
I can hear my...
Not yet. We can't hear you here. Is the problem?
But I'm hearing...
No.
We are hearing her from
or maybe
Zambia.
you take out the hands free. Sometimes it can be a problem, maybe.
No, so...
Yeah, we hear you now.
Okay, because the Zoom participants can hear me. Can you hear me now in the room as well?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, so it was something in the room. Okay, thank you so much, Professor Rugumamu. It was nice to, of course, see you again and hear again some of your thoughts. And as quite well known, and I think the question, for example, relating to our project, it was very relevant. And I was just thinking that, okay, as a person who has been involved in a lot of collaboration processes with African universities, for example, and trying to counteract some of those structural issues with good or bad outcomes. And at the same time, having a lot of struggle with our own institution and own environments to convince our colleagues and institutions that there is some kind of value to collaborate with Africa and know and learn from African knowledge, which is we are a minority in our own environments. So I would like to ask, what do you see any role of kind of collaboration from the universities of North, or would it be better to, what would be the new roles for the collaborators from the Global North, or is there any role in this kind of new future?
So it was the question to us, but we can respond, or some people here like Coleman can respond, but if you have some more, maybe continue, and then you'll get the response to that. Is that okay? Or maybe Coleman, you respond to that quickly? Okay. Okay, so we hear from Barry, and then we get the response from here if Tina is done with his reflections. Professor Barry Gills, please. Some audio challenge again here. Still not coming?
But they can hear.
So others who are not online, who are online can hear, only us in the room.
Some they can't hear.
Oh, problem with us. Yeah.
Not us, it is the system.
Maybe.
So
yeah, we take some time for that to be fixed, and then we hear from Dr. Ajali, who is in the room from the University of Dodoma. Please give him the mic.
Dr. Musoka, you asked me to say anything. It is difficult to say anything. Someone should say something. Yeah, okay. So I wanted first to contribute again on some of the way forward that Professor has suggested. And speaking of the establishing university centers, the trial thing that you talked about, it reminds me one time I was in Uppsala attending one of the conferences, and in the discussions, my paper that I was presenting, and here come one professor from University of Zimbabwe, and he remarked that my presentation was reminding him of the Salaam school of thought. So you think that you are talking about such kind of discussions that were more of the colonization by that time, it's colonizing minds of African in the spirit of Pan-Africanism, maybe that one. I wanted also to hear a comment from you on that aspect. But you also talked something about establishing the spirit of learning from each other in the South. And again, I wanted to comment on this because there is a lot of kind of effort regarding what we are discussing here, which has been done already. But the discussion we have, it appears like we are not recognizing. There is this paper that Dr. Msoka also participated, talking about the identities of development studies, where we want development studies to go, which is part and parcel of what we are we are discussing here, but we are not acknowledging that. So maybe that is because we are not reading from what our fellow, colleagues have been doing. Now, with regard to the project, maybe the discussion, what is happening, and the discussion we have here, it is also in line, as Tina also mentioned, that it's in line with the project because we think about having how do we have the theories that can make sense in the South also, revising curricula as well as thinking about the future, the knowledge and competencies of future graduates in development studies as a part of trying to address the North-South divide that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ajali from UDOM, for the contribution, and I think there will be something for Professor Rugumamu to react. But maybe we could try from Zambia, Professor Mwonga, if you are able to speak. But we could also try again with Bargels if the technology now is friendlier or it will work. Any of online who can come or chip in, and then we will have Professor Rugumamu again to respond to something. Or any other collaborator online, Mwonga from Zambia, but even Benta who is online also from University of Dodoma. Please say something. Are we online? Can they hear us? Yeah, I think so. I see them. Okay, while we wait for the online, we can hear from Severine Rugumamu again in some response.
Thanks very much, Mr. Moderator here. We need new directions of development studies. We should take stock of what we already know, what we have been using all along. And then do a thorough critique to what extent has this type of knowledge or knowledge has helped us. Where did they fall short? And then come up with our new knowledge systems, new hypotheses to test, new concepts, new models. I mean, this we already know, but it's not helpful. What can help us? This interrogation among ourselves. What is likely to help us? Like now, what is likely to help us to move forward? This is not a one-day seminar exercise. It is interrogate over a long period, conversations among ourselves. What is it that we should do? We know the critique of the last series we did. Now, new knowledge systems that are emancipatory in nature. Emancipatory in nature. New hypotheses to test. New research questions to answer. This is a difficulty. It's a new way of looking for new directions. New directions should not be regurgitating what we heard some 50 years ago. New directions, the directions should be really new, untrodden. And yes, the new ones. Then start testing those by practice. It's practice that makes perfect. Some of us who play golf. The more times you play golf, the better you become. So it's practice, practice, practice. So, thank you.
Severine, in your earlier discussion, I recall you said we have our friends in the North who not always support the system, which is more of like subordinating us. Tina asked the question, do you see the light in collaboration with the institutions like Helsinki and Jyväskylä and continued collaboration like the NDDS?
Absolutely, absolutely. Collaborative research. But we should show our own inputs, not following what they tell us to do.
Thank you.
We should be in the lead because this is our project. Our project. Development studies is about us. It's not about.
Yeah, it's true. So, okay, someone is available now online. I think it's Barigels. Please. Sorry? Reading. You read it. You can read it. Still no audio. Okay, so Velasco will read what you have just typed.
So Professor Barry is apologizing for the problem with his audio. He's thanking Professor Rugumamu, giving us a provocative set of mitigation strategies that can inform our discussion in NDDS this week and afterwards. The existential challenges that we all face are acute, and there is an urgent need for development of transformative alternatives. That is from Barry.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Barry, for audio problems.
Okay, so I will invite either Dr. Msoka or Dr. Mbirigenda, anyone of the project who is here for any reflection of, because there was some discussions about the project as well from other colleagues, and then we'll get the final word from Rugumamu and a vote of thanks from Director of IDS to everybody. Yeah, please, Dr. Mbirigenda.
Well, I really don't know what to say because I have a presentation tomorrow and more or less it's along the same lines. So I wouldn't like to preempt myself today, but I think Professor Rugumamu has given us a lot of material for us to think about, especially as we go forward to think about what should be the way forward for development studies. And he has actually cautioned us that development study is about us in the South. That is very important to note. So when we think about development studies, we should think about the South and what are our problems and what we should be doing in order to solve those problems. I think, and as they say, it's not a thing that you can only do in a day. Something that we should make it our life. So when we teach, it should be about trying to make our students think about these issues, trying to analyze, not simply to remember. In my class, I always tell you that it is not about your memory. It's about your thinking. It's about how you can come up with new ideas. That is what will make you different. That is how you can come up with something new. Otherwise, we, as Professor Rugumamu said, we are going to repeat the same things now and then, and nothing is going to change.
Thank you. So now back to Professor Rugumamu. I'm not saying this is the very final word on this issue because we continue debating with you, only just for the session. And then we go to the word of thanks from the Director of IDS. Or maybe before you, I know a scholar of Pan-Africanism and decolonization. Dr. Nyamsenda, can you say a word, please? Just give him a mic. Then we go to Severine. Coleman will close for today.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really wanted to thank Professor Rugumamu for such a thought-provoking keynote address. And of course, I think also the questions that have been raised are very relevant, and this is a conversation that we should have. It's quite a pity that we are actually having this important conversation when it is a collaborative project between the North and the South. But I believe we can still have this amongst ourselves because we have the menu and we have the people. So we should be able to continue the conversation. Because of time, there was a question that I wanted to raise, but probably I wouldn't, I don't necessarily need an answer, but maybe it's a question that we should continue conversing, is that the scholars and revolutionaries in the 60s and 70s thought seriously not only about what is to be done, but also about who is to do it. So, and Professor Rugumamu knows it so well. Revolutionaries like Cabral asked the same question. So who is to take Africa forward out of national liberation and advancing the the level of productive forces. And the question has always been posed along class lines. If you start from Marx, the proletariat, Lenin, an alliance between the proletariat and the peasant. And then Cabral asked the same question, and he actually took issues with the class that was in power, the class that you have actually said, which is unwilling to, take all these emancipatory initiatives forward. So this is the question: which classes should be assigned or entrusted with this task of taking us forward? Because we belong to a certain class, a petty bourgeois class. Us as intellectuals, can we be part of that project? If at all we have to, what are the necessary internal purging measures that we have to take? Because going back to Cabral, he had a conditionality for that. The petty bourgeois has a place in such an emancipatory agenda only if it commits suicide as a class. What does committing suicide as a class mean today? And are we ready to take all those sacrifices? I don't have answers, but it's a question that we should continue to ponder. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabako. So now to Severine for his word of just closing the keynote, and then we will finalize with the director.
Thanks very much, Dr. Mukundi. Let me conclude by thanking IDS for inviting me back at the University of Dar es Salaam after 6 years of disappearance. And let me assure you that I'm available for any of such similar discussions when they are. I'll put this in my diary anytime you have discussions of this nature. Give me an invitation. I can assure you I'll come. Agenda discussion. Just a list that I want to continue with the pattern. Thank you very much.
So now I invite Dr. Nsoka to the podium to postpone now the session until tomorrow. With the word to thank as well.
Asante sana, MC. I know we have an international audience. It makes a difference to say it in a local. Professor was telling us, who prevented us from using Kiswahili in the discussions? Wow. Professor Rugumamu, thank you very much for your keynote address. It was rich and loaded. Loaded in the sense it is a lot of things that we need to know. We from the South, soon to be Dr. Hamza doesn't like the word we. We from the South, we from the North, we global international community. It was rich to us, and let me borrow some few words from Sabato, that we have the room and the people, and we should be able to discuss these issues. This project, this initiative, is about capacity building, help junior scholars to engage questions and be able to learn from the discussions. Professor said you should be writing the new vision of things. It is out of these discussions to be able to get new thoughts that you can put down as visions and things, but also learn, know where the debate is, where it is coming from, and where we are going. Seeing a lot of colleagues from all the departments of the university sitting here, engaging with this, it allows the juniors to learn, to get the vocabulary, see the issues that need to be researched, new topics, new things that are ongoing. Retired professors are not tired. They read a lot. They have the time to read, and therefore they are able to see what we are not reading and bring them to the university, as he did today. So I wanted to say thank to Professor for bringing the new knowledge that you are discovering now as you have enough time to read. But also wanted to thank everyone for coming, particularly those who have asked questions, because your questions are also helping to prepare the next generation of scholars. They know how to pose questions, but also what issues to look at when you go to a conference or seminar like this one. I also wanted to thank the people or those who are online, because their presence, big number of people attended online as well. It is very encouraging. Can you have hands for them, please? It's encouraging that they are far, but they're able to put time into this and listen and engage and ask questions as well. That is important to us. The message we are getting from them is we should also be attending things online. We can attend meetings in Helsinki or Jyväskylä or Dodoma. Dodoma, they've done this already. The next one is UNZA, Zambia. We should be able to attend online or physically as well. And we have more rooms to learn because it is cheaper now to attend events like this. So as I said, it's about to say, we have the room, the time, the people. We should be organizing more so that we have time to learn. Dr. Mbirigenda, I don't want to say, you prevented us from saying anything because you are afraid of preempting your talk tomorrow. But indeed, the question the professor was tackling, the North-South divide, knowledge divide, it's an important issue that needs to be discussed, whether it has decolonization or not. But we need to discuss those because it's an issue that is about, as he said, exertional, living our presence. If you don't do that, then you can disappear academically or in any other form. So we need research-wise will disappear if you don't engage in questions. And he has been able to engage us since 10:15, and that when he started to engage us. With those few remarks, I want to bring this session to a close by thanking you all for coming. People from all the departments and across universities, Dodoma, Arab University, I see you all. Thank you for coming. We'll be here again tomorrow. Same time. Important to note is we have time differences between Helsinki, Zambia, and Dar es Salaam. And therefore, we can't really start very early in the morning because of that time differences. So we'll normally start at a time that is also convenient to our partners online. Barry and the team, we want to thank you and your leadership actually into this. Ilmari, your coordination. We want to thank also the government of Finland and all the people who have put money into this, because without their support, we will not be able to have these one-week sessions that we are going to have. Thank you very much, the government of Finland and the team. With a few remarks, I want to say this now and close. Thank you.